Welcome to Creepy Night, where shadows speak and stories never truly die. Tonight, we open another tale, one whispered through fog, born of fear, and written in blood. So, turn off the lights and listen.
The rain had not ceased for 3 days when Isabel Darcy returned to Greythorn Manor, her family's ancestral home on the windswept coast of Devon. The carriage rolled slowly along the cliff road, its wheels sinking into the mud, while the sea below hissed and struck at the rocks like a chained beast. Inside, Isabel sat motionless, her black gloved hands folded in her lap. Her mother's funeral had ended that morning, a simple, quiet affair attended by few. The last of the Darcys, they had said, gone to join her husband among the saints. But Isabel felt no peace in the thought. The house awaited her now, hollow and unlit, filled with the faint echo of her mother's voice and the scent of old lilac, the fragrance she had worn even in her final illness. When the carriage stopped before the manor gates, the driver hesitated before opening the door. The rain fell harder, slanting through the mist, and the great iron gates stood half open, creaking softly in the wind. "Will you be all right, miss?" the driver asked. "Yes," Isabel said. "Why you?" Her voice was calm, but her heart trembled. "I know the way." She stepped down into the mud, lifting her skirts, and passed through the gate. The path wound upward through a garden gone wild, the hedges overgrown, the statues weeping green tears of moss. Greythorn had once been beautiful, her mother's pride, but now it lay beneath a shroud of neglect. At the top of the steps, the front door loomed, carved oak, blackened with damp. Isabel reached for the key that hung from a ribbon around her neck. Her mother's last gift. It turned smoothly in the lock. The door opened on silence. Inside, the air was cold and faintly perfumed with dust and decay. The portraits along the hall stared down with dim, indifferent eyes. She paused at the foot of the grand staircase, feeling the weight of their gaze. Somewhere above, a shutter banged open, and the wind swept through the house with a sound like distant weeping. She lit a candle from the tinderbox left by the door and began her ascent. Her mother's chambers were just as they had been on that last evening. The fire had long since gone out, but the scent of lilac lingered in the curtains, in the folds of the bedclothes, in the air itself. Isabel placed the candle on the dressing table and looked around. Everything remained untouched, the mirror veiled in black cloth. The ivory combs laid neatly upon the silver tray, the letters tied with ribbon in the drawer. On the table lay a small cedar box, its lid carved with roses and vines. Isabel hesitated before opening it. Inside, resting on a bed of faded velvet, lay a silver comb. It was unlike any she had ever seen. Each tine was carved delicately, tapering to perfect sharpness, and the handle bore the shape of 2 entwined swans. Along its back ran an inscription in Latin, almost worn smooth with age. Memoria manet, memory endures forever. As she lifted it, a faint chill passed through her fingers. Though the metal was warm from the room, the comb shimmered faintly, catching the candlelight in ripples like water. She turned it over. On the underside, a single dark hair clung to the silver. Not her mother's. This one was pale, almost silver white. A sudden draft extinguished the candle. Isabel gasped, clutching the comb. Through the open window came the sound of the sea. Louder now, nearer, as though the tide had risen to the very walls of the house. When she relit the candle, something had changed. The mirror, though veiled, seemed to gleam faintly beneath the cloth. And for an instant, just an instant, she thought she saw movement behind it. She told herself it was grief or imagination. Yet that night, sleep eluded her. The wind sighed through the corridors. The old timbers creaked, and every so often she fancied she heard footsteps beyond her door. Sometime past midnight, she rose, unable to rest, and seated herself before the dressing table. The silver comb gleamed where she had left it. She lifted it again, running her fingers along the smooth, cold handle. It was beautiful, so finely made, so perfect in its balance. She drew it through her hair. At once, the comb slid as though guided by an unseen hand. Each stroke sent a faint warmth through her scalp, and her hair shone in the candlelight like black silk. The movement was soothing, almost hypnotic. She felt the tension drain from her shoulders, her breath slowing, her eyelids heavy. Then, softly, a whisper. At first it was no more than the sigh of wind, but it shaped itself into a voice. Distant, feminine, almost tender, so long forgotten. Isabel froze, the comb mid-stroke. "Who's there?" she whispered. No answer, only the sea, murmuring beyond the windows. She rose quickly and set the comb down. For a long moment she stared at it, heart pounding. Then she laughed softly, nervously. "It's nothing," she told herself. "Only the wind." But when she looked into the mirror, she saw, just for a heartbeat, that her reflection was still brushing her hair. The following morning, she explored the west wing, a part of the house long closed. Dust lay thick upon the floors, and the curtains hung stiff as paper. Her mother had forbidden her to wander there as a child, claiming the rooms were unsafe, but curiosity overcame caution. In the long gallery hung portraits so old their colors had faded to ghostly hues. One, larger than the rest, drew her attention. It depicted a woman of striking beauty, pale with silver blonde hair that fell to her waist, and eyes like polished stone. In her hand, she held the same silver comb. The plaque beneath read, Lady Evadne Darcy, 1674-1701, lost at sea, aged 27 years. Isabel stared at the painting. The woman's gaze seemed alive, cool, knowing, fixed upon her. The resemblance was unmistakable. The same mouth, the same curve of jaw. It might have been her own portrait, painted centuries too soon. Behind her, the wind whispered through a crack in the window pane. It sounded almost like a sigh. That evening, as the sun died behind the gray cliffs, Isabel found herself again before the mirror. She had not meant to take up the comb again, yet her hand reached for it of its own accord. When the silver teeth touched her hair, the whisper returned, clearer this time, closer. You wear it well, as I once did. Isabel's hand trembled. Who are you? The whisper deepened, almost a breath against her ear. Evadne Darty. She spun, the comb falling from her hand. The room was empty. Her heart raced. She bent to retrieve the comb, and found, to her horror, that the hair caught between its teeth was no longer hers. Pale strands, like spun silver, clung to the metal. She dropped it onto the table and backed away. Her pulse thundered. This can't be real, she whispered. But the mirror was already darkening. Within its depths, something moved. A shadow. A face emerging from the dim glass. A woman's face, cold and beautiful, framed by silver hair. The eyes were her own, yet not her own. They watched her with quiet hunger. Do not fear me, the reflection whispered. We are one blood. The candle flickered, the flame bending toward the mirror. The scent of lilac filled the air again, stronger now, almost suffocating. Isabel stumbled back, choking on the sweetness. Then, suddenly, the mirror went still. Only her own reflection remained, pale, trembling, eyes wide with terror. The comb lay silent on the table. When morning came, she found the mirror veiled once more, though she did not remember covering it. The comb, however, was gone. The morning broke beneath a sky of pewter, the air thick with sea mist. Isabel Darcy woke to the sound of rain against her windows and a faint, rhythmic tapping, as though something were brushing against the glass from without. For a moment, she thought at the branch of the yew tree beyond her window. But when she drew aside the curtain, she saw that the tree stood still. The tapping ceased. She turned back toward the room, her heart still unsettled. The veil had slipped from the mirror in the night. It hung now half-folded upon the floor. The glass itself was perfectly clean, too clean, reflecting the room with unnatural clarity. The silver comb, which had vanished the night before, now rested neatly upon the dressing table. She stared at it for a long time. The sight of it drew her forward, though a cold instinct within her begged restraint. She lifted the comb once more. Its surface gleamed faintly, even in the dull morning light. And for an instant, she fancied she could see her own pulse reflected in it. A soft shimmer that seemed to echo her heartbeat. Evadne, she whispered. The air did not stir, yet she felt the faintest breath upon her neck, cool and fragrant with lilac. The mirror darkened, as if a cloud had passed across its surface. At breakfast, she found Mr. Brandt, the estate steward, waiting in the hall. He was a stooped old man, half blind and devoted to her mother to the last. His voice trembled with age when he spoke. "Forgive me, Miss Isabel, but I heard you walking late last night. Are you quite well?" "Yes," she said, though her voice betrayed her fatigue. "The house feels restless." He nodded slowly. "It does that sometimes when the mists come in. Your mother used to say the sea speaks through the walls." She smiled faintly. "And did she believe it?" "Toward the end, yes," he said. "She spoke of dreams, of someone calling from the old West Wing. Lady Evadne's rooms, she said. But we keep those doors locked now." Ian. Isabel's hand tightened upon her teacup. "Tell me of her, Lady Evadne." Mr. Brandt's cloudy eyes flickered with discomfort. "Best not to dwell on such tales, miss. The sea took her, they say, though no body was ever found. Some claimed she walked into the waves herself. Why? She was vain, perhaps, or cursed, as some whispered. They say she owned a mirror and a comb wrought of silver, made by the hands of a jeweler who trafficked with unholy things. Both were lost with her, or so we thought." His gaze drifted toward the staircase. "Strange, though. I fancied I saw a light in her old window last night. What? But there's no one there. Why?" When she returned to her chambers, the air was heavy with the scent of lilac. The window stood open, though she had closed it before descending. Upon the dressing table, a single silver hair lay coiled beside the comb. The candle flame flickered, though no breeze stirred. She sat down, trembling, and looked into the mirror. Her reflection gazed back, pale and still. For a moment, all was ordinary. Then, a blink, too swift, too wrong. The reflection's eyes closed a heartbeat later than her own. She rose sharply, knocking the chair behind her. "Enough," she whispered. "This is madness." Yet, the reflection did not move. It remained seated, its eyes upon her. And then, slowly, gracefully, it smiled. Isabel's breath caught in her throat. "Stop." The reflection's lips parted. The voice that came forth was hers, and not hers. "You woke me." Her knees nearly failed her. "Evadne." Names fade, faces endure. You have mine. You always did. Why do you haunt me? I do not haunt. I inherit. The voice softened to a whisper, and Isabel felt it within her bones. We are bound by blood and beauty. You, who mirror me, have only to let me in. The reflection rose from its seat, though Isabel herself did not move. Its movements were slower now, almost tender. It reached out a hand, pressing it against the inside of the glass. The surface rippled like water. "Touch the glass," it murmured. Isabel shook her head violently. "No, Jay, going deep." The whisper deepened into a sigh. The ripples stilled. The reflection resumed its place, obediently mimicking her trembling stance. She seized the black veil and threw it once more across the mirror. "I will not be your puppet," she said aloud. But when she turned to leave, the comb was gone again. That night, the dreams came. She dreamt of a long hall lit by candles, of music faint and distant, and of a woman standing before a mirror, brushing her hair with the silver comb. The woman's hair glowed like molten metal. Her face was serene, ageless. When Isabel tried to see it clearly, the features blurred, until they resolved into her own. A voice whispered behind her, "Look what beauty can preserve." She turned, but saw only her own reflection, smiling back with cold adoration. When she awoke, her pillow was strewn with silver strands of hair, not white with age, but pure metallic silver, like threads of moonlight. The following day, she resolved to leave the house, to take the comb, lock it away, and perhaps seek counsel from the parish vicar in the next village. But when she searched for it, it was already waiting upon the table, polished to a mirror's sheen. The inscription gleamed clearer than ever. Memoria Mane Aeternum. She dared not touch it, yet its beauty compelled her gaze. A faint warmth emanated from it, and the scent of lilac filled the room once more. The mirror veil stirred, though no wind moved. And then, softly, the sound of brushing. Isabel's heart froze. She turned. There, within the veiled glass, a shape moved. The dark outline of a woman seated before her reflection, combing long hair with slow, deliberate strokes. The sound was gentle, rhythmic, and yet it filled the room as though amplified by the very air. Isabel's hands trembled. "What do you want from me?" The brushing stopped. The figure turned its head within the veil, and a faint voice came, muffled but distinct. "To be remembered." The veil quivered. "When the in guy in key." The outline of the figure grew sharper, closer. Isabel snatched the cloth away. The mirror blazed with silver light. Her reflection was gone. In its place sat Lady Evadne, young, radiant, smiling faintly. The silver comb gleamed in her hand. "Beauty dies," she said. "Memory does not. Each daughter must bear her mother's reflection." "Release me," Isabel whispered. "I cannot, nor can you." Evadne's eyes darkened. "The comb binds us. With each stroke, it draws a thread of life. From you to me, from flesh to glass. It is how I remain. Nay, and that body, in the Belbelwai." Isabel's voice shook. "Then I shall destroy it." Evadne smiled. A patient, pitying smile. "Can one destroy what is part of oneself?" The light in the mirror dimmed. The reflection's face softened. "You will understand soon, child of my blood, and when you do, you will thank me for the gift." The image faded. The mirror was again her own, showing only her pale, tear-streaked face. Outside, the storm broke. Rain lashed against the windows, wind howled through the chimneys, and thunder rolled over the cliffs. Isabel, trembling, seized the comb and ran from the room. In the library, she found the hearth still warm. She threw the comb upon the coals, pressing it down with the fire iron. The flames hissed. Then, impossibly, they dimmed. The comb glowed, but did not melt. Its silver gleam deepened to crimson, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. A voice rose from within the fire, a cry, sharp and sorrowful, echoing through the hall. Isabel stumbled back, horrified. The flames leapt, throwing her shadow against the wall. When the light steadied again, the comb lay unmarked upon the ashes, cold and perfect as before. She fled, leaving the room dark behind her. In her bedchamber, she collapsed upon the floor, shaking. The mirror loomed before her, still unveiled. For a long moment, she dared not look, but the silence drew her eyes. There within the glass, Lady Evadne smiled. Not cruelly now, but with infinite weariness. Do not resist, Isabel. I endured centuries waiting for your touch. The comb remembers every hand it has known. Tears welled in Isabel's eyes. Then take it back. Take what you will, but leave me free. Evadne's reflection tilted its head, pity softening its voice. Freedom is illusion. We are only reflections, one of the other. Nearby, the mirror darkened once more, and the voice faded to a whisper. Sleep now, child of silver ash. The candlelight flickered out, and in the morning, when the first gray light touched her face, Isabel's hair shone pale as moonlight. 3 days passed. The storm had abated, leaving Graythorn shrouded in pale, breathless fog. The sea no longer roared, but murmured faintly, as though exhausted from its fury. Within the house, every sound seemed magnified. The creak of the boards, the sigh of the wind in the chimneys, the soft echo of Isabel's footsteps as she moved through the long corridors. She had not slept properly since that night. The silver comb lay locked in a drawer, wrapped in black cloth, yet she felt its presence always, like a faint hum beneath her skin. Each time she passed a mirror, she averted her eyes. Yet sometimes, even in her avoidance, she felt watched. That morning, she resolved to visit the library again, not to destroy, but to learn. Somewhere within those dust-laden shelves lay the history her mother had feared, the truth behind the comb and its first mistress. The library at Graythorn was vast and dim, its tall windows shuttered to keep out the sea damp. Isabel lit a candle and began to search among the old records, the family ledgers and journals bound in cracked leather. The air was thick with the scent of paper and dust and the faint medicinal odor of time. After an hour, she found it, a small volume bound in green Morocco leather, the name Evadne Darcy embossed in faded gold along the spine. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The pages were yellowed, the ink brown with age, yet the handwriting was elegant, precise, curling, distinctly feminine. It was not a diary, but a collection of letters, dated between 1699 and 1701. The first entry began, "To my sister, Clarissa, the days grow long here by the sea, and solitude weighs heavily. My husband's absence stretches into months, and the only company I keep is my looking glass. It flatters and it deceives, as all mirrors do, yet I find myself drawn to it more each day. They say vanity is a sin, but what is vanity if not the longing to endure? I have had commissioned a comb of silver from the jeweler in Bath, who claims his craft is touched by alchemy. He calls it a charm against decay, a way to preserve what time would steal. I do not know whether I believe him, Yet when I hold it, I feel young again. Isabel's breath caught. She read on, the candle flickering over the page. December 1700. The comb grows colder to the touch, though I keep it close. Sometimes, when I look into the mirror, I see another face behind mine. Faint, watching. Perhaps I am ill. Perhaps I am blessed. Clarissa, if you should ever find this, burn the comb. It is both my treasure and my curse. The last letter bore no date, only a blot of ink where the pen had faltered. The sea calls me. I hear it, even when the wind is still. The mirror speaks now. It shows me what I shall become. Perhaps beauty must drown before it can be eternal. The entry ended abruptly. The page beneath was smeared, as though by tears or salt water. Isabel closed the book and pressed her fingers to her temples. A deep ache throbbed behind her eyes. So, it was true. The comb had been created by hands unholy, and Lady Evadne had known its power and its price. Yet, the question remained, why had her mother kept it, and why had she passed it on? She rose, intending to leave, when a faint light drew her gaze toward the far end of the library. The curtain there moved slightly, though no wind stirred. Beneath it, a glimmer, soft, silver, pulsing. She crossed the room. Behind the curtain hung a portrait, vast, its surface dim with dust. She pulled the fabric aside. Lady Evadne looked out at her once more, her painted eyes alive with cold brilliance. The years had not dulled the beauty of the portrait. The brushwork was delicate, the flesh luminous, the silver comb gleaming in her hair, as though newly polished. But something was different now. The face in the portrait had changed. The smile was wider, faintly knowing, and the eyes, once gray, now shone pale blue. Isabel's blue? She stumbled back, the candle wavering in her hand. No, she whispered. This cannot be. The painted eyes seemed to follow her, the corners of the mouth softening into something like pity or amusement. Did you find what you sought? The voice came from nowhere or everywhere. It resonated faintly, like a whisper caught in the hollow of the room. Isabel turned in terror. Evadne, the voice sighed. I was Evadne once, and you were always meant to be. The candle flame elongated, bending toward the portrait. The silver comb within the painting gleamed brighter, reflecting the flicker of living fire. Isabel felt the drawer key in her pocket grow hot. The comb, locked upstairs, was calling. No, she said aloud. You will not take me. You cannot unmake what is bound by blood. The sound deepened, a rustling murmur that filled the room. The whisper of many voices overlapping, the echo of centuries. The candle flickered wildly. The air grew thick, oppressive, heavy with the scent of lilac. Isabel backed toward the door, but the floorboards beneath her feet groaned, resisting. The portrait loomed larger, the colors deepening as though freshly painted, wet with unseen light. The woman within it raised her painted hand, the silver comb glinting between her fingers. And then, impossibly, a single strand of silver hair fell from the canvas, drifting through the air like silk and landing upon the floor. Isabel fled. She ran through the corridors, her heart pounding, the candle nearly extinguished in her grasp. The house seemed alive now, the walls breathing, the shadows pulsing. The whispers followed her, soft as moth wings. In her chamber, she locked the door and collapsed upon the bed, gasping for breath. Her hair clung damply to her temples, and as she brushed it aside, she saw it shimmer faintly in the dim light, streaked with pale silk. A sob rose in her throat. "What have you done to me?" No answer came, only the ticking of the clock upon the mantel, slow and steady as a heartbeat. She rose and went to the mirror. It stood uncovered, waiting. Her reflection met her gaze. Calm, composed, unnaturally beautiful. The silver sheen of her hair caught the candlelight and burned softly, like frost in sunlight. The reflection smiled first. "You see now." The portrait was only a doorway. "The true canvas is you, undeterred." "Why me?" "Because you remember, because you looked." Each woman who bears the comb becomes the next reflection. The body fades, the image endures. Isabel's eyes filled with tears. "Then how did you survive?" "By surrendering what was mortal. When I walked into the sea, I did not drown. I entered the mirror's depths. The water, the glass, they are the same, both boundless, both reflective. The comb keeps the passage open. The comb keeps the passage open." She pressed her hand to the glass. "And if I break it?" The reflection's smile faded. "You would unmake both of us." The voice softened, tender as a lullaby. "Why fear eternity, child? Is it not better to remain perfect forever than to fade as flesh must?" Isabel's pulse thundered in her ears. "No," she whispered. "I will not be your vessel." The reflection tilted its head. "You already are." The mirror darkened. From within it, faint ripples spread outward, like the surface of disturbed water. Isabel stepped back, trembling. The scent of lilac grew overwhelming, cloying. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the presence withdrew. The mirror cleared. She saw only herself, pale, trembling, her eyes hollow with fear. That night, Isabel gathered her few belongings and wrote a letter addressed to Mr. Brandt, instructing him to sell Graythorn to any willing hand. Wow, to any willing hand. She intended to leave before dawn, to flee to London, perhaps to a convent, anywhere beyond the reach of mirrors. Yet when morning came, the sea mist lay so thick that she could not see the end of the garden path. The carriage she had ordered did not arrive. And when she sought Mr. Brandt, she found only silence. His room empty, his bed untouched. On the table in the front hall lay a single object, wrapped in black cloth. Her hand shook as she unfolded it. The silver comb gleamed, untouched by soot or time. Beside it, on a scrap of parchment in faded ink, were written 2 words, "For a remembrance." She looked toward the grand staircase, and for an instant, she thought she saw movement at its summit. A pale figure, silent and still, her silver hair falling like a waterfall of light. When she blinked, the stair was empty, but the scent of lilac lingered. The mist did not lift. It lay over the cliffs like a shroud, dimming the light and muting all sound. The sea could no longer be seen from the terrace. Even its voice seemed distant, a memory rather than a presence. Inside Greythorn, the air was heavy with damp and the faint scent of lilac that never seemed to fade. And Keel, enduring Aurelia never seemed to fade. Isabel moved through the rooms as one who dreams, each step echoing in a silence so deep it seemed to listen. The comb lay on her dressing table once more. She had locked it away, wrapped it in cloth, hidden it in drawers and cupboards. Yet every morning, it reappeared in the same place, glimmering faintly beside the mirror. The silver teeth gleamed as though freshly polished, untouched by human hand. Sometimes she thought she heard it hum, a sound too faint to be sound, like the vibration of air before thunder. That morning, she tried to ignore it. She sat by the window, attempting to write, though her words drifted into nonsense. Her thoughts would not settle. Every few minutes, her gaze wandered to the comb and to the mirror that waited beside it. By afternoon, she could bear the silence no longer. The drawing room had changed since her arrival, subtly yet unmistakably. The wallpaper, once faded, now seemed darker, richer, as if restored by unseen hands. The curtains stirred, though the windows were closed. Even the portraits on the walls appeared to glow with new color, the eyes of long-dead ancestors brightening when she passed. Isabel stood before the great mirror over the fireplace. Its frame was of carved oak, adorned with strange symbols she had never noticed before. Spirals and vines, twined serpents, and eyes half closed in sleep. She traced one pattern with her fingertip. The wood felt warm. She looked up. Her reflection stood perfectly still. And then, as she watched, smiled. Not a twitch of her own mouth. The reflection's smile was faint, secret, knowing. "Evadne," Isabel whispered. The lips in the mirror moved, though no sound came. A heartbeat later, the air around her trembled, and a voice emerged, soft and musical, as if spoken through the veil of water. "Why do you resist me, child? We are not enemies." Isabel stepped back, her pulse quickening. "You are not real. Not real." The voice laughed gently. "Then why do I speak? Why does your heart answer mine?" "No." The reflection raised its hand. Isabel's own hand remained motionless. The figure within the glass brushed a silver comb through her shining hair. Evadne's comb. And each stroke seemed to make the reflected hair glow brighter, turning from gold to pale argent light. "Do you see what I can give you? Time cannot touch what belongs to me. You will not age, Isabel. You will not wither. You will endure, as I do, within the glass." "I do not want eternity," Isabel said. Her voice trembled, but did not break. "I want peace." The reflection's expression softened. "Peace. Peace is for the forgotten. Would you rather sink into dust, nameless, unseen, when you could live forever in beauty?" "Nyan. Beauty dies with meaning," Isabel said. "Without it, it is only—" She broke off, pressing her palms to her temples. The air felt thicker now, almost fluid. The voice filled her skull, not her ears. You speak of meaning, yet you keep me close. You dream of me each night. You wear my hair. Her fingers flew to her head and froze. A streak of silver ran through her dark curls. She tore at it, but it would not come free. The color was not painted upon the hair. It was the hair. Isabel stumbled backward. What are you doing to me? The reflection smiled again. Only what you invited. The room grew colder. The light dimmed, though the candles burned steadily. Isabel turned away, but her reflection remained visible from the corner of her eye, moving when she did not, turning slowly toward her, as if within a deeper space. She fled the room. In the corridor, her steps echoed wildly. She clutched at the banister, her breath ragged. But even as she climbed the stairs, she felt the presence following, not behind her, but within her shadow. In her chamber, she bolted the door. The fire had gone out. The hearth was cold. She sank onto the bed and covered her face with her hands. A faint whisper brushed the air. Isabel! She looked up sharply. The whisper came from the mirror opposite her bed, small oval, its frame of tarnished brass. The glass was misted, though the air was dry. You cannot run from your own reflection. Leave me, she cried. I'm not yours, but you are. You hold my name in your blood. You bear my face. You called to me the moment you touched the coat. I never called. You did, when you longed for your mother's beauty, when you looked into the glass and wished to see her again. It was enough. Nee. Isabel's throat tightened. I only wanted to remember her. And so you shall, for I am memory itself. The mirror darkened, swirling with silver mist. Shapes moved within, faint figures drifting like shadows beneath water. Faces emerged, her mother's, pale and still, then others, unfamiliar, each framed by flowing silver hair. They watched her silently. We are one, whispered the voice. Each reflection, a thread in the tapestry of the mirror. Join us, Isabel. Be the newest strand. A sudden gust of wind burst from the hearth, though no fire burned there. Papers flew from the table. The curtains billowed outward, as though drawn by invisible hands. Isabel clung to the bedpost, her hair whipping around her face. Stop! She screamed. You will not take me! You invited me! The words echoed, layered with countless other voices. Evadne's and her mother's and others beyond name. The mirror flared with light, and for an instant Isabel saw herself reflected 100-fold. In every angle, every shimmer, each version smiling, beckoning. She seized the silver comb from the table where it had appeared once more and hurled it across the room. It struck the mirror's surface. The glass did not shatter. It rippled. For one impossible moment, she saw a vast, dark space beyond. A hall of mirrors stretching endlessly, each one reflecting a woman's face, pale and eternal. The comb sank into that shimmering surface and vanished. Then, silence. The air stilled. The curtains fell limp. The mirror, was once again dull and gray, its surface cracked faintly across the center like a frozen tear. For hours she sat unmoving, Her mind was a hollow bell. When at last she rose, the world beyond the window had changed. The mist was thicker than ever, pressing against the glass like a living thing. Not even the faint outline of the cliffs was visible. Her eyes fell to the floor where the mirror stood. Something gleamed there. A single strand of hair, long, fine, and silver white. She reached down to pick it up, but when she touched it, it dissolved into dust. That night, Isabel dreamed of water. She was walking through a forest of mirrors, each one reflecting her from a different angle. The air shimmered like liquid glass. From the depths of each mirror, a voice called her name. Isabel, come home. When she woke, her pillow was damp with tears, or perhaps with sea spray. And on the dressing table beside her bed, the silver comb had returned. It gleamed faintly in the moonlight, untouched, unbreakable. And in the mirror above it, a reflection that was not her own smiled. The house no longer slept. What? Graythorn breathed in whispers. The wind had ceased, yet the curtains stirred. Footsteps echoed faintly along the corridors, though no one walked there. The mirrors, once still, now seemed alive. A pulse of dim light moving behind their surfaces, like blood through veins of glass. And in her chamber, Isabel Darcy stood before the largest of them, staring at her reflection as if into an abyss. The silver comb gleamed in her hand. She had tried everything to destroy it. She had dropped it into the fire. It had not blackened. She had struck it with a poker. It had not bent. Even when she hurled it from the cliff, she found it again on her pillow before dawn, gleaming with the chill of the sea. Tonight, she would end it differently. She lifted a candle and watched the comb shimmer in the flames glow. "You will not keep me," she whispered. "Not any longer. You cannot fight your own reflection." The voice was soft, close. Inside the mirror, Isabel froze. The glass rippled faintly, and there she was again. Lady Evadne, her hair a river of silver light, her face calm as moonlit water. "Why do you cling to pain, Isabel?" the apparition asked. "It is so brief, this mortal flutter of breath. Let me give you peace. Let me take the weight of time from your shoulders." "Your peace is prison," Isabel said, her voice trembling. "Your eternity has no soul." The smile in the glass deepened. "And what has your world, child? Grief? Dust? Forgetfulness? Your mother sought me before her end. She too wished for release." Isabel's breath caught. "You lie. Ask her." The mirror clouded, darkened. From its depth emerged another shape, softer, fragile, a woman's face, pale and kind. Isabel's heart stopped. "Mother." Her mother's image smiled faintly, eyes filled with something like sorrow. "My darling," the apparition whispered, "do not fight her. She brings no harm. She only keeps what time would take." Tears filled Isabel's eyes. "You wanted to protect me. I wanted you to remember me, and through her, I do. The comb, it binds us all. Every mother, every daughter." Evadne's voice returned, cool as silver water. "You see now, you are not alone. You are a continuation, a thread in the same weave." Isabel's grief twisted into rage. Then it ends with me." She raised the candle high and thrust the comb into the flame. The wax hissed, the air filled with the scent of burning. But the silver did not melt. Instead, the candle's fire turned white, too bright to bear. The mirror blazed with it, spilling radiance across the room. Evadne's figure expanded, her eyes now like twin stars. "Foolish child, you cannot destroy what you are." The voice reverberated through the chamber, shaking the walls. The comb burned cold in Isabel's hand, biting her palm with frost. She screamed and hurled it at the mirror. The impact exploded into light. Glass shattered outward in a sound like thunder. Shards flew across the room, catching the candlelight as they fell. For an instant, Isabel saw two worlds collide. Her chamber and another, deeper one. Endless corridors of mirrors stretching into eternity, each reflecting the same woman in infinite variations. Evadne stood at the threshold between them, her silver hair flowing like smoke. "It was never about the comb," she whispered. "It was always about you." Then she reached out through the glass. Isabel stumbled back, but her reflection did not move. Instead, it stepped forward, out of the mirror, its form wreathed in cold light. It looked exactly like her, except for the eyes. Those eyes glowed pale and ancient, filled with Evadne's centuries of memory. The doppelganger smiled. At last, Isabel's voice broke. "No!" They collided. Shh. Light flared, silver, blinding. The walls dissolved, and the sea's roar returned, not from outside, but from within her head. She felt herself falling, sinking through water, through glass, through time. She opened her eyes and saw herself. Her body stood motionless before the mirror, her own face serene, her hands resting lightly on the comb now gleaming once more on the table. She tried to cry out, but no sound came. The mirror's surface closed above her like ice. Evadne's voice whispered all around, "Sleep now, Isabel. You are eternal." When morning came, the storm had passed. The sky was pale and clear. A tradesman from the village arrived with provisions and found the house silent. In the chamber, overlooking the sea, a woman sat before the mirror, brushing her hair with a silver comb. He called to her. She did not turn. Her movements were graceful, serene. Her hair shimmered in the light, pale as frost. The man, uneasy, stepped closer. "Miss Darcy?" No answer. Then, as he reached the doorway, he saw her face in the glass, smiling faintly. But the chair was empty. He fled the house. Behind him, Greythorn fell silent once more. The mirrors darkened. Only the scent of lilac lingered, faint but inescapable. And in the mirror, over the fireplace, two figures now stood side by side. One young, one ageless, both brushing their shining silver hair. Years passed, and the sea kept its secrets. Greythorn stood silent upon the cliffs, its windows blind, its gates sealed by rust. No smoke rose from its chimneys, and no carriage marked the winding road that led to its door. Villagers avoided the path altogether. crossing themselves when the mist crept inland. Some said the place was cursed, others that it was empty. A few whispered that it waited, listening. One spring morning, a young antiquarian named Mr. Samuel Whitcomb arrived from London, bearing a letter of permission to survey the estate for its surviving heir. He came out of curiosity more than duty, for he had heard strange tales in the city. Tales of a lady of silver hair who had vanished without trace, leaving behind only mirrors and whispers. The caretaker refused to accompany him beyond the gate. "You'll hear her if you listen," the old man muttered. "She walks the corridors when the tide turns. The sea calls her name." Whitcomb smiled indulgently, as men of reason often do, and entered alone. The air inside Greythorn was still as a tomb. Dust lay thick upon the floor, but beneath it, the prints of small bare feet could still be seen, fresh, though no one had walked there in years. The curtains hung in tatters, yet the faint scent of lilac lingered, clinging to the walls as though woven into the fabric itself. He moved from room to room, taking sketches, making notes. Most of the furniture remained: the great oak tables, the worn carpets, the portraits of solemn ancestors staring down with painted gravity. Yet, there was something unsettling about the mirrors. There were too many of them. Every room held one, sometimes two or three, in frames of silver or gilt, their glass dull with age. When he passed them, he thought he saw movement, a flicker of light, a shadow within. Once he thought he heard a sigh. He told himself it was only the wind through the cracks. In the library, he found the portrait of Lady Evadne Darcy, half covered with a sheet. He drew it aside and stared, transfixed. Her beauty was uncanny, her gaze alive, even after centuries. The silver comb gleamed in her painted hair, the same comb described in the household inventory he had read in London, a relic lost to time. He noted it carefully, then turned to leave. Something caught his eye. On the floor beneath the painting lay a single strand of hair, long, fine, pale as moonlight. He bent to pick it up. It was cool to the touch, almost metallic. When he held it to the light, it glowed faintly, as if remembering sunlight from another world. He slipped it into his notebook. That night, Whitcomb camped in the small study beside the main hall. He lit a fire, poured himself a measure of brandy, and began to write his report. The stillness of the place pressed around him, but he comforted himself with rational thoughts. The trick of light, the echo of the sea, the human mind's tendency to populate silence. At midnight, the clock in the hall struck 12. He paused, pen poised. The sound did not stop at 12. It continued, a 13th chime, low and hollow, reverberating through the house. He rose, listening. Somewhere above, faintly, a sound, like the soft rhythm of brushing hair. He hesitated, then took his candle and mounted the stairs. The boards creaked beneath his weight. The sound grew clearer. Swish, swish, steady, patient, almost soothing. It led him to the master chamber. The door stood ajar. He pushed it open. The air smelled of lilac and salt. The fire was dead, yet the room glowed with a dim, silvery light. At the dressing table sat a woman, her back to him, her hair falling in a long cascade of silver over her shoulder. "Miss Darcy," he said softly. No reply. "One may you on the new landfall very year." He took a step closer. The candle flame flickered, throwing shadows across the walls. "Forgive me," he said. "I did not mean to intrude." The woman continued to brush her hair. Each movement was slow, graceful, deliberate. He reached out and saw her face in the mirror. Her eyes were vast and luminous, like the sea under moonlight. Her lips curved in a faint, eternal smile. Behind her reflection stood another figure, pale, serene, a woman dressed in 17th century silks, her hand resting lightly upon the first woman's shoulder. Evadne and Isabel, side by side. Whitcomb stumbled back. The candle guttered, flared, and went out. The room plunged into darkness. He felt cold air brush his cheek, the sensation of someone passing close by. When he fled into the hall, the mirror's faint glow followed him, reflected in every frame he passed. He did not stop until he burst through the front doors and into the misty dawn. The wind rose, carrying with it a whisper, soft, almost tender. For remembrance, Whitcomb returned to London the next day, pale and silent. His report, filed with the Historical Society, mentioned nothing of what he had seen. Only one object accompanied him, the lock of silver hair, which he kept sealed in glass upon his desk. Those who visited him in later years said the hair never faded. Some swore it lengthened slowly over time, curling around the glass like ivy. After his death, his assistant found the specimen case shattered on the floor. The glass was cold to the touch, and beside it lay a single silver comb, untarnished, gleaming softly in the dim light. No one could trace its origin. The case file was closed as unexplained. Today, Greythorn remains. The sea has eaten half the cliff, and the house leans toward the void like a weary sentinel. Travelers who pass near its ruins at dusk say they hear the sound of brushing, slow, rhythmic, echoing from the empty rooms. Some claim to see faces glimmering in the shards of broken windows. And when the moon is full, the mist along the cliffs turns faintly silver, and the scent of lilac drifts inland. If one listens closely, the wind seems to whisper a single name, half sigh, half song, Isabel, or perhaps Evadne. But the sea keeps its secret, and somewhere, beneath the endless shifting of tide and time, a mirror waits, patient, eternal, reflecting not what was, but what will be.
And that was tonight's story. Some tales end with silence, others never end at all. They just wait in the dark, waiting for you. You've been listening to Creepy Night, where every whisper tells a story, and every story leaves a shadow. Sleep well, if you can.